Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and this is the Hyundai Ioniq Electric. In 2017, when Hyundai first released the Ioniq, they'd done something that no other manufacturer had done before. They had created a range of hybrid and electric vehicles under the same body shape. Now beforehand, if you wanted a self-charging hybrid, you got yourself a Toyota Prius. A plug-in hybrid, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, or a full EV vehicle, you probably went for a Nissan Leaf. But with the Hyundai, it was brilliantly simple. You could just walk into a dealership and choose a self-charging hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or a full EV version of the Ioniq. It was amazingly simple, and even I'm surprised no one else had done it. Now I've got this revised version of the Ioniq, and I've had it for a week, and I'm going to see if it's still a great electric vehicle and if you can still have your slice of hybrid EV cake and eat it. Style wise, well, there's no getting away from the fact that the Ioniq is clearly a hybrid or electric vehicle in its shape. It just screams Toyota Prius or Honda Insight in its design. You can tell it's just meant to cut through the air with minimal drag and be as frugal as possible. And as a result, it does mean that it's not the most gorgeous car to look at. In fact, it looks a little bit plain. I mean, I am a little bit disappointed with the design overall, but then again, it is definitely a case of function over form. Now for the EV version, we have got the grille that's been blanked out, therefore to reduce drag, but we have got these little slats here that do open up just to provide a little bit of extra cooling for the electrics inside. And we have got the EV alloy wheels that are only 16 inches on the Ioniq, but they are of a nice design. I do wish though they were just a little bit bigger, just to feel the wheel arch a little bit more. But you know what, you can easily tell it's all in the aid of comfort. But let me know what you think of the Hyundai Ioniq in the comments section below. Do you like the looks, or do you think it's a little bit plain Jane? But you know what, I think that's enough of looking at the outside of this Ioniq. Let's have a little look at the inside. Sat in the front of the Ioniq, you are greeted by a very comfortable and what I think is a really nicely designed interior. It does feel like a nice place to be and go for a drive. Now of course, this being a hatchback, it does mean you have to bend down a little bit to get in and out of the Ioniq, but the doors open nice and wide, which makes it nice and easy. And then once you're sat in the driver's seat, you find that the seats themselves are very comfortable. They do hold a big bear like me in place, and there is plenty of adjustment because on this Premium SE they are electrically adjustable with lumbar support. I will note that the front passenger seat, however, is manually adjustable only. And then the steering has both brake and reach adjustment, so getting the perfect driving position is easy, and it's actually a very comfortable place to be when on the move. Then interior quality is actually pretty good as well. We have got soft touch plastics on the dash, some fake leather here on top the instrument cluster, and some soft touch plastics here on top of the doors. Now yes, there is some hard scratchy plastics throughout the cabin, but it is mixed with some piano black plastics as well to give it a bit more of a premium feel here inside the Ioniq. It does actually feel like a nice mix and match of materials. Cubby spaces are pretty good in here as well. We got some decent sized door bins where you can get a small to medium sized bottle of drink in there, but it's not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. Then we got this brilliant tray area here in front of the gear selector, and I absolutely love it. You can put phone, you can put electrical devices, perhaps a handbag, wallet, keys, everything in there, and it will just keep it on display, but it will keep it in a secure location. And what I love as well is that there is a rubber lining on the bottom, so items shouldn't rattle around in there. And then you have got a couple of 12-volt sockets and a USB charging input, and that kind of shows you can have a number of electrical devices in there and have them charging whilst you're on the move. I will note that there is no cover on there, so don't leave any valuable items on display. Then there is a little kind of, well, it looks a bit of a cup holder, but it's actually the wireless charging area. But I actually find it's brilliant for putting my little notepad in, because unfortunately I do have to take my phone out of its case in order to use the wireless charging, which is a little bit annoying. So I would like that to be a little bit bigger, and it will definitely be handy for my iPhone 11 Pro. And then we have got a couple of cup holders just behind, which are of a decent size, and there are a couple of little grippers in there to make sure that items and cups and stuff do stay in place. And what I like as well is that the bottom again is lined with rubber. And then if I lift up the armrest, we've got a decent sized cubby space underneath the armrest with another USB charging input. And then just ahead of there, we have got a little area where you could put some loose change or perhaps put the key in there whilst you're driving. So that is quite handy. And then finally, we have got the glove box, which is of an okay size, but in typical Hyundai fashion, that's the book pack you get with it. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Bible is not as thick as that. So it does take up a good chunk of the glove box area, which is again a little bit disappointing. And then there's a little storage area up here for your sunglasses, which is lovely and handy. So all in all, cubby spaces, yeah, are pretty good in here as well. And then we got the buttons and the infotainment system. So we've got a 10.25 inch display up here. It's set nice and high up on the dash. And you know what? It's actually pretty easy to use when on the move. Now, you haven't got any physical shortcut buttons underneath, but they are touch sensitive and they are easy to read and use whilst on the move. And then just below the air vents, we have got your climate control buttons. And again, they are touch sensitive. They are easy to see, read and use, especially when on the move. And you know what? This is what I want these kind of electric vehicles and new wave of vehicles to be like when it comes to changing the climate control and using these systems when driving. You don't have to use the infotainment display. It's all here and it's really easy to use when on the move. But there's actually only two physical buttons, and that's the demist and defog for the front and rear screens. And then just here we have got your gear selector controls, and there's a nice little leather handrest there, so I can put my hand on and press the drive, park, reverse and neutral. And then right at the back here we have got your electric handbrake. And then we've got a little cluster of buttons here as well. So we've got things like auto hold, we've got your front and rear parking sensor control, drive mode, heated and ventilated seats, and then they've got the heated steering wheel, and there is a view button. Now, usually when you see a view button, it means that you're going to get the 360 cameras, but on the Premium SE, you only get a reversing camera, but you can turn it on whilst you're driving and moving forward. So that is a handy feature, perhaps if you are manoeuvring in a tight parking area. And then we have got a selection of buttons here underneath the driver's side air vent. So these are your safety buttons. So we have got your lane departure assist, we have got blind spot monitoring, your virtual engine sound system as well, because this is an electric vehicle and it does emit a kind of weird sci-fi noise as you're driving about in slow speed. And then we have got a petrol filler cap button, or basically a button to pop open for the plug and charge it up. And then there is a plug-in timer button as well, so you can actually set the car to kind of stop charging at a certain point. But all in all, I am really loving the interior of this Ioniq Electric. It actually feels quite special. Now, my only kind of downside to it is that there is a lot of grey in here, so it can feel a little bit drab, but I do love the design, I do love the layout, particularly of the infotainment system. It is really easy to use, especially when on the move. And in this day and age, as a lot of manufacturers are getting rid of buttons and putting it all controlling via the infotainment system. I know I said via a few times there, but this just seems to be the best combination, or the best kind of way of going about it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really love that design. But all in all, I just really like it here in the front of the Ioniq, and I think that's enough of being sat here in the front. Let's have a little sit in the back. Sat in the back of the Ioniq, we start to see the drawbacks of that teardrop design. Now, that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a decent amount of knee room, but headroom is actually quite tight. And if I sit up straight, yes, my head is rubbing against the ceiling. So anyone 6 foot tall will definitely feel cramped back here. So it's definitely suitable for 2 adults for a short journey, but it's more than ideal for kids back here. Cubby spaces are pretty good as well. We've got some decent sized door bins, but again, not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around in there, but you can get a medium sized bottle of drink in there. Then we have got your airplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats, and we have got a couple of cup holders here on an armrest you can pull down. However, there's no through loading into the boot area, which is a little bit disappointing. And then the windows themselves are of a nice decent size, and they are tinted on this Premium SE. And a nice added bonus is that they do open all the way down. And then finally, we have got your ISOFIX supports on the outer seats, and they're nice and easy to get to because there's no plastic covers covering the support bars there, so that is handy. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we've got some air vents here. We've got no extra charging inputs underneath them, so any kids back here wanting to charge their mobile devices, they'll have to use the ones up front, which could be a little bit annoying because you don't want kids sat here being bored, do you? But all in all, it's absolutely fine for somebody of my height, but if you are taller, you'll definitely feel the pinch of that sloping roofline. But you know what? I think that's enough of seeing the back of the Ioniq. Let's have a little look at the boot. Opening the boot of the Ioniq presents you with 357 litres of space, which isn't too bad for this class of car. It's a bit more than a Toyota Prius, but a bit less than a Volkswagen Golf. But it is a nice square load area, and you can easily get a couple of suitcases in the back of the Ioniq. It's not devoid of features either. We have got a couple of tethering hooks, and there is a bit of additional underfloor storage, but it's mainly taken up with a tyre puncture repair kit and a bit of additional netting. And if you do put the seats down, you do get an almost completely flat load area, so it does mean that the Ioniq is a bit more versatile when loading large heavy items, because there's a little bit of a boot lip to navigate over, but there is a decent scuff plate there to help you out when unloading any heavy items. The only drawbacks are that there's no 12-volt socket, although we have got a little bit of additional cubby space on the right hand side. The left hand side is taken up by the subwoofer for the Infinity sound system, and that is a cracking sound system indeed. Also, the two types of charging cable you get with the Ioniq do take up a little bit of boot space, so it's a bit disappointing you can't kind of put them underneath the boot floor. But other than that, it's actually not too bad. It's very usable. But you know what? I think that's enough of looking at the practical side of this Ioniq Electric. Let's take it for a drive. So once you get driving in the Ioniq Electric, first impressions are really good. Now, it's actually a very relaxing car to be in. Now, I am driving at 20 miles an hour. Of course, this being an EV, there's no engine sound. It is whisper quiet. Not only that, I can't hear the wind outside, and it is blowing a gale today, which is actually a nice surprise. I was expecting to kind of hear the wind hitting the side of the car, but it hasn't been, which is really good. Now, visibility is a little bit hit and miss. Now, looking out the front of the car is absolutely fine. We've got some reasonably thick A-pillars, but they are quite steeply raked, so I've not found myself looking around them at any junctions, which has been a bit of a bonus. However, yes, if I do look over my shoulder, I've got quite a thick C-pillar, and I've got that kind of split rear screen design, kind of reminiscent of the Mark 9 Honda Civic, which does mean that rear visibility is quite poor, and also the rear headrests do actually obstruct your view looking behind you. So it's not the best in regards to all-round visibility, but on this Premium SE, well, I have got blind spot monitoring, so that definitely has helped. But all in all, in terms of first impressions here in the Ioniq Electric, it's just like most electric cars. It's very quiet, it's very civilized, comfortable as well. So yeah, first impressions are really good. Trim levels in the Ioniq Electric range, well, it's nice and easy. There are two to choose from. You've got the Premium and this, the Premium SE. And really, without any hesitation, go for the Premium SE. You get all the tech that you could possibly want, and it's only about £2,000 more expensive than the entry-level Premium. But the things I've really liked have been the front and rear parking sensors, adaptive cruise control, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, heated and ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, and a heated steering wheel. And with winter coming, well, they've been very handy indeed. But definitely as well, in regards to resale value, that will definitely help you out going for the Premium SE. And as I said, it's only about £2,000 more expensive than the Premium. So yeah, that is definitely my pick of the range. Premium SE all the way. Now, there's only one battery choice to choose from in the Ioniq Electric range, and it is a 38.3 kilowatt per hour battery, which produces around about 134 brake horsepower and 295 newton meters of torque, which is actually kind of what Hyundai say is what a 1.6 litre petrol will produce. And what that means is, in normal mode, this will hit 0 to 62 miles an hour in around 10.2 seconds. But if you put it in sport mode, that drops to 9.9 seconds, which isn't too bad for this type of car. However, if you look at the Hyundai Kona Electric, and particularly with its 64 kilowatt per hour battery, that will hit 60 in 6.7 seconds. So you can kind of feel that this is slower than that little crossover. But in terms of everyday driving, it's absolutely fine. Pulling away from the lights and at junctions, it is nice and responsive, and you will find yourself just kind of getting the edge on other drivers as you pull away. That's one of the joys of these electric vehicles, is that as soon as you put your foot down, the torque and the power is instantly there for you. Now, yes, this isn't going to scare you like the ludicrous settings of a Tesla, but for everyday driving and usage, it feels very much familiar to its combustion engine equivalents. You just feel as though it has got the right amount of power for everyday driving, but there are those, you know, who might just be yearning for a bit more performance and excitement from the Ioniq, and unfortunately, you're not going to get it. Now, range-wise, Hyundai say I should get about 194 miles per charge, and on my first charge of the Ioniq, when I got it delivered to me, it did go up to 195 miles, so it's good to see that it does do what Hyundai claim. However, as soon as I pressed the air conditioning button on the center console, that did drop to 180 miles. So just be aware, having certain functions turned on in the car will affect the total range. But now the range is absolutely fine. However, charging, it's not quite up to speed with its rivals. So if I use a 7 kilowatt charger, I can get from 0 to 80% in about 6 hours. And if I use a 50 kilowatt rapid charger, I should be able to charge up to 80% in about an hour, which is not as good compared to some of its rivals. So that's something that Hyundai do need to work on for the next generation of EV. Just needs to kind of get to, say, the 35 to 45 minute mark to do the same amount of charge, and a lot of people will be happy. But if you're not doing lots of long journeys and perhaps you're going to just charge this up overnight, a 7 kilowatt charger won't do any problems whatsoever. And if you use a 3-pin charger, well, yes, that is going to take quite a few hours, but, you know, leave the car parked up for the weekend whilst you go about charging it that way. But yeah, using a 7 kilowatt charger should be absolutely fine if you leave it for the day, driving up to work or anything like that. Just need it to be a little bit quicker, particularly in its rapid charge setting. So what's the ride and handling like? Well, ride-wise, in the Ioniq Electric, it's for the most part really good. I mean, it deals with the bumps and imperfections really well, particularly when you're driving at speed. However, some of the potholes and manhole covers do boom and vibrate, and they do enter the cabin, which can disrupt the ride a little. And if you're driving at low speed on a poor bit of tarmac, yes, again, the ride can feel a bit unsettled. So that is just something to be aware of. But for the most part, it's absolutely fine, and on day-to-day driving, you're not going to have any real concerns. Refinement levels as well are actually pretty good. Driving along at 70 miles an hour, you don't get much in the way of wind noise coming off the wing mirrors and the A-pillar. And that's all down to that teardrop design and how the Ioniq just kind of cuts through the air with minimal drag. The one main intrusion into the cabin, however, in regards to refinement, is tyre roar, and it can be quite pronounced if you're on a poor bit of road. So that is a little bit disappointing that they couldn't isolate much of that noise away from the cabin. But on the plus side, you have got the Infinity sound system, which is absolutely brilliant. Something I really do like about Hyundai's is that they use Krell and Infinity, and they just seem to be, for kind of consumer cars like this, really decent sound systems. And if you listened to some of the bands that I listen to, you'll understand how I really do enjoy a decent sound system to make full use of what I'm listening to and hearing all the beats and the orchestra and everything in the background. With my time in the Ioniq Electric, have I come across any little niggles that I need to let you know about? Well, not really. The only one I've come across is the same one I've come across in pretty much every Hyundai or Kia vehicle, which is on the steering wheel controls, where the volume is absolutely normal. You go up for louder and down for lower in the volume setting, but then the track button is the other way around. You go up for repeating the same track, or you go down for the next track. So that was just a little thing I always need to mention on my reviews of Hyundai or Kia cars, because it's one of those things that can just catch you off guard, especially as it's right next to the volume control. But other than that, not really. I mean, I've covered the main things on the Ioniq. The shape means that yes, it is very aerodynamic, it's very streamlined, cutting through the air, but it means practicality side, it's not the best compared to rivals, particularly for rear passenger space. And then there's just the tyre noise coming into the cabin, and then some of the booms and vibrations coming into the cabin as well as you drive over a poor road surface. And that's pretty much it. I do like the digital display. It changes when you go from normal to sport to eco, so it's quite nice to see that change there. I would like to see this and a combination of what they had on the Kona Electric, because as much as I love the actual dial on the Kona Electric's display, it just didn't seem finished when it had the little TFT screen to the right hand side or even left hand side of the cockpit. But that was only a minor niggle on the Kona Electric, but I do like the display here on the Ioniq Electric. So what are my thoughts on the Hyundai Ioniq Electric? Well, this is, I think, a very good all-round electric car. It has got a decent range with 195 miles, decent practicality, although rear passenger space is not as good as some of its rivals. What I think some people will be wanting, however, is just a bigger battery pack, like on the Kona Electric with that 64 kilowatt per hour battery as an available option, because I think a lot of people would love to have that additional performance and range. But as I said, I've not suffered any range anxiety here in the Ioniq Electric. I've actually been really happy driving it about like a normal car. And I'm just very thankful, being in Milton Keynes, that we have got a very strong charging network. But there are lots of things to like about the Ioniq. I love the interior, I love the touch sensitive buttons and the overall design. Exterior wise, yes, it's not really gonna blow your minds in regards to looking like an attractive car, but a lot of these eco cars like the Toyota Prius and the old Honda Insight, they weren't exactly the best looking cars, were they? They were definitely function over form, which is absolutely fine, but I'd love Hyundai to really have a go at making the next generation of Ioniq a very exciting car to look at and drive as well. So this is definitely a jack of all trades EV. Decent range, decent practicality, and it is actually really well priced compared to some of its rivals. I mean, these are really great times to be a fan of Hyundai, and I cannot wait for the next generation of Ioniq. But do you know what? In terms of an electric vehicle, you can't really go wrong with the Ioniq, but there are cars out there with a bit more range to them and a bit more practicality for around about the same price. So I do recommend having a drive of the Ioniq Electric, because it could be the right car for you if you don't want to go for certain other manufacturers, i.e. PSA or Nissan. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Hyundai Ioniq Electric. As always, don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button and the bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. As always, if you've got any questions on the Ioniq and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. Are you an Ioniq owner and have I missed anything? Please let me know again in the comments section. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the Ioniq Electric. It's a very good all-round EV, perhaps just not the best. But you know what? It is worth taking a test drive in it. Now guys, don't forget as well, I'm also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and I always advise you follow me on there for additional content, including live videos and still images of cars that I've driven and events that I've gone to. And in the meantime guys, I hope you have yourselves a wonderful day. Don't forget to wash your hands, wear a face mask, maintain your social distancing and stay safe. And I will catch you all in the next video. So take care everyone, and bye bye.